So my name is James Preston. I'm from AN Security. We are a security and networks company operating out of Basingstoke, doing all kinds of fun things here in the city of Oxford, predominantly with the colleges in the wireless and firewall space. Today I'm going to give a brief presentation on securing your data like you would secure your bike. Now obviously this is all linked into ransomware because that's the thing that everyone seems to be worried about. And when we think, why are we worried about ransomware? The first one is that big fat ransom, that loss of money for your organization. You may think, oh, no worries, I've got insurance is going to pay for it. But here's the horrible truth now about ransomware. It's not just script kiddies, it's now international terrorism and organized crime where that's money actually going to. The next hit against us is the reputational damage, and this is perhaps the bit where we're really actually worried because it's difficult to build that reputation back up. But what we're seeing is the damage isn't actually against the student population. It isn't people deciding we're not going to come to your organisation to become a student. It's actually hurting funding research. So those organisations who are hit by ransomware are going to find it a little bit harder in the future to actually get funding for their internal research. Perhaps not necessarily affecting the colleges too much, but certainly the departments. And of course the final aspect to it is old school viruses and malware. Yeah, okay, you got a little bit hurt. You thought, oh well, this is a shame that we've been attacked. But ransomware is immediate, it's visceral, and by the way, it makes it into the press. It truly hurts. And we see a lot of people focus on a single aspect of preventing ransomware actually happening in their networks in the first place. And that's this one single pillar of security. Now, if we apply this notion to securing our bicycles, we think about security, we go and buy a big bike lock. Absolutely brilliant. Let's go and secure our bicycle with a big bike lock. Right until someone on the internet goes and publishes a wonderful video that shows you how to break into that bike lock in 30 seconds or less. So you think, okay, no problem, I'll go and buy a better bike lock. And they go and publish another video which again shows how to break into that bike lock in 30 seconds or less. And the analogy that we draw here is insert the products that you've bought so far. Insert your shiny firewalls, your vulnerability management platforms, your anti-malware agents, and the fact that you're doing your software updates in a timely manner. But let's think about the two other aspects that we will apply to securing our bicycles and how we can also then use those two other aspects to securing our data. The first is visibility. Now, if we leave our bicycle unlocked in the middle of a dark street in Oxford, it's more than likely going to disappear, isn't it? So let's ensure that our bicycles are nice and visible in a well-lit area with CCTV watching them. Decent chance that our bike is not going to be the one that's targeted in that case. They're going to go after someone easier. And the final one is, okay, maybe we've lost our bike, but don't worry, we've gone and put those protective markings on it, and if the police ever actually catch up with who has stolen our bike, we've got some traceability. There's a decent chance that you might actually get your bike back as well. So we're going to ignore security as part of this little presentation and focus exclusively on the visibility and traceability aspects. And if we take a small sample of the technologies that you might already have inside your environments today, how can we tease out a little bit more for visibility and traceability? So visibility, three core areas here. The first one being our directory services. So those of you who host Active Directory or similar, you will be generating event logs right this moment that detail failed logins. And we'll have a look at each of these different areas in a little bit more detail later in the presentation. In addition, you'll be generating logs on the creation of new accounts and any Active Directory security group changes as well. All this useful information that you can use to inform your decision making. Oh look, suddenly we've seen a surge of people attempting to log in to accounts that just don't exist. They've all come from this one single IP address. Maybe that's a time to go and say, okay, let's block that IP address from accessing our network. Then when it comes to the network side of things, those of us with so-called next generation firewalls, or those firewalls that have insights into the applications that are traversing our networks and not just the services and ports, you can have some visibility into the file sharing services that are traversing your network. And equally so, you can control those file sharing services as well. A lot of ransomware will start with data exfiltration, stealing information off your machine, stealing information off your servers, and they have to exfiltrate that data somewhere. and that's probably going to be up to somewhere like Google Drive, Dropbox, and we see Adobe Creative Cloud used quite often as well, quite recently. And then finally, the client side as well. Do we actually have visibility into the patch level of our clients? And you might say, okay, our clients which are domains joined, controlled through WSUS, controlled through SCCM, controlled through all these wonderful platforms like that. Yes, we can see our patch levels. But what about the other people that connect to your networks through your VPNs? What about the academics, fellows, the students who are using machines that are not inside your control? Can you see the patch levels of those machines? We'll look at each of these in detail in just a minute or two's time. And the other aspect, of course, being traceability. Again, if you have a Windows file server, with the right boxes ticked inside group policy, it's possible to turn on the file server auditing features. And this will give you a detailed record as to which files are being accessed against that file server, which IP addresses and which users are reaching into those files. And again, a perfect opportunity to gain that option to trace what traffic is going through that file server. The perfect opportunity to say, oh look, I've suddenly seen 1,000 files have their file extension changed and their file name changed. Perhaps that's ransomware. And for those minute number of attacks that are going to evade your security defenses, at least we've got some method of tracing that. At least we've got some method of seeing into what's going on. A technology that you might have seen mentioned before but have never really delved into is a wonderful one called honey tokens. This is the ability that if someone opens a file which you've hidden on your file server, or if someone even copies that file and loads it up into a sandbox, it will alert you to the fact that file has been accessed. It's kind of like taking the canaries down into the mines. And when the canary dies, guess what you get out of the mine? Same with these honey tokens. If someone squeezes that honey token, it's going to give you an alert. It's going to give you additional information for the traceability aspect to know who is accessing your file, from what machine. Was it a public IP address? Was it a private IP address inside your organization? And the final aspect, and this is one that we've not actually seen deployed in Oxford yet, and I can't wait to see it actually happen, is the notion of DLP, or data loss prevention. And again, by using technologies which are already built into Windows, but of course enhanceable via the various vendors out there. You know, I've got to mention the vendors every now and again. We can put metadata into our files. We can say if a file has been tagged so that after 1 year that file should be archived, we can use an automated process to do that. We can take that file off our live file server and hide it away from our threat actors. And the same can also be applied to files which have a measure of confidentiality. So if you've got sensitive student data, by applying these metadata tags to these files, we can say if that file is shipped through our firewall and detected, the firewall has an opportunity to go and trace that back to its original source. Who actually did that? And of course, intervene and stop the transfer of that file. So looking at these different aspects in a little bit more detail, so some real world examples here as best as I can. Here we've got the Windows event log off an Active Directory domain controller. Those of you with the keen sights there can see that the user hacker1 has attempted to log into the domain. You will already be capturing this information on your domain controllers. The out-of-box settings do this already. But what you'll also probably find is that your event log is set to capture 20 megabytes worth of data. That will get you about 7 minutes. 7 minutes of traceability, visibility, and audibility into your networks. So when you leave this presentation, when you go back to your organizations, hop onto your Active Directory domain controllers and again set through group policy or even local configuration and up that 20 megabytes into something bigger. 2 gigabytes is a nice starting point. In addition, if you've got a remote access service, so a VPN for instance, you'll probably find that it's generating logs like the one below. Again, the user hacker2, novel naming here, has decided to attempt to log into our VPN service. They've not been found and so they've been denied access. But again, we've got that IP address that they've attempted to log in from, an indicator of compromise, an indicator that someone is attempting to perform a malicious act against our network. You are probably already generating this information already. It's just a case of using it in a productive manner. When it comes into the visibility of network services and applications, here we have a small screen grab from a next generation firewall, which is identifying the applications traversing our network. And here we've got Google Cloud Storage and also Microsoft SMB version 3 traffic traversing our network. Now we might think, okay, SMB traffic, perfectly fine, that's what we're expecting to see. But if Google Drive is not a sanctioned application inside your organization, this is your opportunity to get some visibility into it and see who is uploading data into Google Drive. Which users from which IP addresses? Is it a user that's typically uploading data into Google Drive? And by using other services, in particular decryption, you can also account for scenarios where some departments inside the college or department need to download data from Google Drive, but then also block the ability to upload data to Google Drive. We can get down into that fine-grained ability to control our network traffic and start writing rules like this. So for instance, the college office might have a perfectly legitimate reason to use Microsoft OneDrive, and the old members office might have a perfectly legitimate reason to use an Oracle cloud service to track the members and the alumni of the college or department. But let's block all other file sharing across our network, across the users which we haven't sanctioned their access to file sharing services. And of course, this can be done at a very granular level. So if specific users, if specific departments, if specific IP address ranges need access to file sharing services, we can open that up for them. Whilst again, cutting out those avenues for data exfiltration. If a threat actor tends to use Google Drive, if a threat actor tends to use Adobe Creative Cloud to exfiltrate data from your network, guess what? They've no longer got that option. And they're going to go somewhere else and look for an easier target. So what about the client side? Let's say you allow some members of your organization to VPN into your network to access your services. It would be nice to have a little bit of visibility into those clients, to see if they're running an up-to-date operating system, to see if they've got an up-to-date patch level on their machine, to see perhaps if they've got drive encryption enabled and a valid anti-malware service as well. All of that is now possible through many firewall vendors, through many VPN vendors. We can extract data which looks like this, which provides you with the serial number of the machine, which can provide you with the Windows version that they're running. And we can again use this to gain visibility on those clients. Do we see Windows 7 clients still connecting to our network? If yes, we can assume perhaps they're going to be compromised in some manner because Windows 7 doesn't receive patches anymore. And we can use that as an enforcement point as well. If you're on a Windows 7 machine and you attempt to VPN into our network to access sensitive data, guess what? We've used those metrics to say no. We've used those metrics to then inform the administrator by an email alert to say, perhaps we need to talk about getting you a new computer. All of this is now possible through modern firewalls, through modern VPN services. The final bit that I'd like to touch on again from the client side of things is there is a technology built into the enterprise releases of Windows called App Locker. And again, for those machines which are domain joined, those machines which you do indeed actively manage, it is possible to write rules which first identify all the applications which are being executed inside your environment, and second, control those applications to only allow those which you've sanctioned to actually run. Now, the ones of you that have looked at this and gone Google search, is there a way to bypass App Locker? Yes, there are ways to bypass App Locker, but you know what? It's another layer of our protections, of visibility, to be aware of what's actually going on our clients, to perhaps be able to control and enforce the actions that are going on our clients. So that when a threat actor drops a PowerShell script, when a threat actor drops an executable which has changed every time that they've used it, and therefore can bypass simple signature evasion, you can go and block that execution, or at least get some visibility into what applications are running on your networks. This is built into the enterprise releases of Windows 10. Oh, and Windows 11 as well, that's now a thing. When it comes to the traceability side of things, again, we're looking at Event Viewer. All this technology is built straight there into Windows, and by ticking the right boxes inside your group policy settings, you can open up the ability to start sucking out event logs for accesses to files in your environment. Ship them up to a nice logging service. There are some great free and open source ones out there like Greylog, and there are plenty of paid for ones as well which can do some more fancy things. And by using these services, you can gain that traceability. You can say that if a user has suddenly modified a significant number of files, one, you get an alert to that fact, and two, you know who did it, at what time, from what IP address, on what machine. It's a simple case of enabling the logs and then opening up that file size to be something bigger than 20 megabytes, which is the default on Windows Server these days. When it comes to the traceability aspects, a free service available on the internet called Canary Tokens. Again, serious recommendation after you leave this presentation, when you return back to your colleges and departments, just go and download a couple of these. You can get them in a variety of different formats, including Word documents and PDFs. Give them nice enticing file names like super secret ways to take over the universe. Drop them into the root of your file server. Tell the people to not click on those file links. And you will get a nice alert from the service that looks something like this when someone loads that file. It will tell you their source IP address. It will tell you the browser user agent string that was used to access that file. Another nice early warning indicator that something is potentially malicious afoot on your network. And again, provides that traceability, provides the information that you need to take action at the speed of relevance. Data loss prevention, again, it's built into Windows. It's a feature that was, introduced back in the dark days of Windows 2000 and probably hasn't really changed that much since. Again, through a service called File Server Resource Manager, which you can enable on your Windows file servers, you can create classification tags which look like this. You can say a file is public or private, and then again use features built into either the file server through event log auditing or the firewalls that you might use already to trace these files as they move across your network, to see who's accessing them from what IP addresses and get alerts, or even better, block those firewalls as they attempt to traverse, blocks those files as they attempt to traverse your firewall. So that's the main bulk of my presentation. The worst case scenario, something goes horribly wrong, you've been hit by ransomware. First, please get in touch with Oxcert. They're just over there in the corner. Really nice people, really intelligent group of people. But equally so, AN Security, we're down in Basingstoke. Give your account manager a ring. We're just on the entrance to the South Exam Schools there on the left-hand side. And when it comes to your insurance documents, if you are getting ransomware insurance, please read the fine print. You may see some aspects about you must have 90% of your machines patched and up to date within 7 or 14 days of the release of high and critical security updates. And if you can't prove that, if you don't have some method of providing a report on that, you may well find that your insurance is not going to help you. Thank you all. If you do have any questions, inquiries at ansecurity.com, or come see us in the entrance to South Exam Schools. I'll open it up to any questions. If not, thank you all for attending. Cool.